What's wrong with this picture has different meanings for us in this starter video in anticipation of our reading of Inferno 5 and our discussion to come. In the first place, it's a game that you might have seen on the back of a cereal box, or perhaps in a newspaper, or you may have run across it featured on the back cover of Highlights magazine when you were a child. That's where I recall first coming across it. What's wrong with this picture is a game where one tries to find the incongruities and anomalies of a picture that on the surface looks perfectly plausible. It's a game that is meant to challenge and train one's skill in visual analysis, one's critical faculty for reading surfaces. And it's a good analogy for the instruction for use, the method of reading Dante's Hell that I would like to get across to you in this video. A very good reader of the Divine Comedy, Professor John Fricero, once observed that understanding in the Inferno is a process that might be characterized as hyperbolic doubt, systematically applied to the values of contemporary society. Each encounter in hell amounts to the ironic undercutting of the values enunciated by the separate characters, even those values that seem perfectly defensible from a human point of view. One must always carefully analyze the speech of the damned, that is, their self-representations, especially their rationalizations and self-justifications in words. Do you find Francesca persuasive, or for that matter, any of the other damned we encounter in Dante's Hell? If so, why? If not, why not? Read skeptically the speech of the damned. Acquire understanding through hyperbolic doubt. That is, in essence, the what's wrong with this picture school of Dante criticism. Now, Francesca da Rimini, the adulterous heroine of Inferno 5, as you will have read, gives her own self-justifying account in two passages, which are among the most famous and lachrymose of the poem. We'll concentrate on the second, but do pay close attention to the first, Inferno 5, verses 97 through 108, in which Francesca blames it all on love. She justifies herself using the commonplaces of contemporary love lyric and chivalric literature, the top 40 radio, the soap operas of that time. Dante himself had authored more than a few love poems in this genre in Florence before his exile, and this may have to do with why he collapses, falling down like a dead man at the end of the canto. Love, Francesca says, which is quick to kindle in the noble heart, sees this man with the fair form taken from me. Love, Francesca says, which allows no one beloved from loving, sees me so strongly with his charms that, as you see, it has not left me yet. Dante, the author, as opposed to Dante, the character, is making the point that Francesca has forgotten herself, her own reason, and taken by the grip of contemporary culture and commonplaces about love. She even says, love brought us unto one death. She blames it all on love. But Dante, the pilgrim confessor, wants to know more. But tell me, he says, how and by what signs did love acquaint you with your hesitant desires? And we've come to the second passage in the canto, and I'd like to look at it in this slide together with you. Verses 127 through 142. I'll read the Italian and you can follow in the English. Noi leggevamo un giorno per diletto di Lancelotto come amor lo strinse. Soli eravamo e senza alcun sospetto. Per più fiate gli occhi ci sospinse quella lettura e scoloròci il viso, ma solo un punto fu quel che ci vinse. Quando leggemmo il disiato riso esser basciato da cotanto amante, questi, che mai da me non fia diviso, la bocca mi basciò tutto tremante. Galeotto fu il libro e chi lo scrisse. Quel giorno più non vi leggemmo avante. Mentre che l'uno spirito questo disse, l'altro piangea, sì che di pietade io venni, men così come io morisse, e caddi come corpo morto cade. It's a plausible account. It even makes a pretty picture, as you can see in the slide, where is a romantic representation of the canto from the 19th century. But what's wrong with this picture? In the first place, it might have been better had they read on, for they would have discovered in their reading the tragic consequences of the Guinevere and Lancelot affair, the end of Camelot. Note that while Dante the Pilgrim is swooning, Dante the author is at pains to distinguish between the literary aura of the chivalric false consciousness and the carnal materiality of the reality of Paolo and Francesca's adultery, through the contrast between il disiato riso of Guinevere and the bocca of Francesca, between cotanto amante, such a lover as Lancelot, with poor Paolo, simply questi, and the arrangement of these elements in a chiasmus, a figure of speech by which the order of the poems in the first of two parallel clauses is reversed in the second. To reinforce, this figure reinforces the ironic, demystifying contrast. Finally, as before, when she blamed it all on love, Francesca blames someone else, this time not amore, but il libro, the book, and not just the book, but the author who wrote the book, whom she calls a Galahad, a go-between, a pimp. But the reader is supposed to recognize, I think, that Francesca is not the victim here, except of her own false consciousness. And that's, she's made reason subject to desire. And what about the pilgrim? He swoons like a lovesick reader or some romantic illustrator. But to return to our classic question, our instruction for use, how does the perspective of the author differ from that of the pilgrim in this canto?